Olivia Hart's gender reveal party was meant to be the happiest day of her life. Instead, it became the last time anyone saw her alive. Just hours after celebrating the upcoming arrival of her child, Olivia vanished without a trace, leaving behind only unanswered questions. A month later, her SUV was discovered hundreds of miles away, driven by a stranger who claimed to have bought it legally. As investigators dug deeper, they uncovered a chilling web of secrets, betrayal, and a hidden life that no one, least of all Olivia's closest loved ones, ever saw coming. What happened to Olivia after the party ended? The answers were darker than anyone could have imagined. On a warm Saturday afternoon in late May, the lakeside park, just outside of Austin, Texas, was filled with laughter, pastel balloons, and the soft sounds of country music drifting from a portable speaker. Olivia Hart, 28 years old and 6 months, pregnant, stood in the center of it all, beaming with joy. She was surrounded by people who loved her, family members, lifelong friends, co-workers from the marketing firm where she worked. It was her gender reveal party, a celebration she had planned down to the smallest detail. A tiered cake with pink and blue icing stood on a picnic table decorated with confetti and paper garlands. Her white dress fluttered gently in the breeze. The fabric stretched softly across her growing belly. Olivia looked happier than she had in months. Just after p.m., guests gathered for the big moment. A friend handed Olivia a balloon filled with powder. With a burst of anticipation and cheers from the crowd, she popped it. Blue powder exploded into the air. She was having a boy. There were hugs, tears, and the clicking of cameras as the moment was captured and shared on social media. Olivia looked overwhelmed in the best way. She spoke quietly to a few friends about nursery colors and baby names. She joked about craving nothing but orange juice and pickles. She seemed calm, grounded, and genuinely excited about the future. By most of the guests had said their goodbyes. Olivia stayed behind with a close friend, helping pack up decorations and leftover food. She gave away extra cupcakes and loaded the cake stand into the trunk of her silver Toyota Highlander. She hugged her friend one last time and said she was going to stop by her apartment to rest before calling her mom later that evening. She never did. Surveillance footage from the parking lot showed Olivia getting into her SUV alone and driving away just after 6:30 p.m. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. Later that night, texts sent to her phone went unanswered. By the next morning, her phone was going straight to voicemail. She didn't show up for a scheduled Sunday brunch with friends, something completely out of character. When her mother stopped by her apartment, Olivia wasn't home. Her car was gone. Her bed was made. The air in the room felt too still, too untouched. At the time, no one panicked. Not yet. People assumed she was tired, resting, maybe spending the night at a friend's. But by Monday morning, reality began to set in. Olivia Hart had vanished less than 12 hours after one of the happiest moments of her life. By Monday morning, concern had turned into fear. Olivia Hart's family and friends had exhausted every possible explanation for her silence. She wasn't answering her phone, hadn't posted anything on social media, and didn't show up for work. Her employer at the marketing firm reported that Olivia had not called in or notified anyone of an absence, something she had never done before. She was known to be reliable, punctual, and especially organized in the weeks leading up to her maternity leave. It was completely unlike her to disappear without telling anyone. Her mother filed a missing person report just before noon. Police officers arrived at Olivia's apartment complex within the hour. The door to her unit was locked, and there were no signs of forced entry. A maintenance worker let them inside. Everything appeared normal to normal. Her phone charger was plugged. And next to her bed, a cup with melted ice sat on the coffee table. Her makeup bag and toiletries were untouched. The fridge held leftovers from the party. Her overnight bag was still in her closet, packed as if she had been planning a short trip. But her purse was gone. Detectives pulled security footage from the apartment's parking lot and main entrance. Olivia was seen returning home around 9:15 p.m. on the night of the party. She parked her SUV, got out carrying a small bag and what looked like a takeout box, and entered the building. She was alone. No one suspicious followed her. From that point on, there was no sign of her leaving the building on foot. No one entered her unit. Her key fob wasn't used again. The SUV, a silver Toyota Highlander, was also missing. Police entered the vehicle into the national database as stolen, but it would be weeks before that lead turned up anything useful. Olivia's phone last pinged off a cell tower near her home around 9:30 p.m. After that, it was either turned off or disabled. Her bank accounts showed no activity. Her debit and credit cards hadn't been used since the morning of the party. There were no emergency room admissions matching her description, no travel records, no rideshare receipts. Flyers went up across the city, and local news stations picked up the story by Tuesday night. Tips began to trickle in, but nothing led anywhere. The case began to stall. To everyone who knew her, it made no sense. Olivia was stable, excited about her baby, and surrounded by people who cared. No one had any idea who would want to hurt her or why. Nearly 4 weeks passed with no sign of Olivia Hart. The search had grown cold. Detectives followed every lead, checked in with hospitals, shelters, and transit authorities, and even brought in cadaver dogs to search nearby wooded areas. Nothing turned up. Her name faded from headlines, replaced by newer stories. For those who loved her, it felt like she had been swallowed by the earth. Then, out of nowhere, a phone call changed. Everything.it came from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, almost 500 miles from where Olivia had last been seen. A state trooper had pulled over a silver Toyota Highlander for speeding just outside the city. The vehicle matched the make, model, and license plate of Olivia's missing SUV. The man behind the wheel was calm and cooperative. He handed over a registration slip and a handwritten bill of sale. His name was Darren Cole. He said he had purchased the SUV about 2 weeks earlier through a Facebook marketplace listing. He believed the transaction was completely legal when troopers checked the vehicle's VIN. It was confirmed it was Olivia's car. But something didn't sit right. The paperwork Darren had was basic, and the seller's name listed was incomplete. The bill of sale wasn't signed by the seller, only Darren himself. There was no official title transfer, and no contact number beyond a deactivated prepaid phone. Still, Darren insisted he had no idea the vehicle was linked to a missing person. He was taken in for questioning, not under arrest, but as a person of interest. Detectives from Austin were contacted and soon joined the investigation. Darren allowed police to search the SUV. Inside, they found Olivia's original floor mats had been replaced, and her baby registry cards, once tucked into the glove box, were gone. No blood, no hair, no fingerprints. It had been thoroughly cleaned. Darren's story stayed consistent. He claimed to have met the seller in a Walmart parking lot. The man arrived in a black pickup truck, wore a mask, and insisted on a cash-only deal. Darren had withdrawn nearly $5,000 from his savings to buy the vehicle, and a screenshot of the Facebook listing, now deleted, was still saved in his phone. While his story couldn't be completely disproven, it left more questions than answers. Who was the masked seller? How did he end up with Olivia's car? And most importantly, what happened to Olivia. The SUV was now evidence. Darren was released, pending further investigation. He didn't seem like a killer, but someone out there had gone to great lengths to make her disappear. Detectives now had Olivia's car, but still no Olivia. With Darren Cole released and under observation, the investigation pivoted to tracing the SUV's path from Texas to Louisiana. Traffic cameras placed the vehicle moving east on I-10 approximately 10 days after Olivia disappeared. There were no speeding tickets, no toll records, and no reports of suspicious activity during the journey. Whoever had driven the car had avoided attention carefully, almost professionally. Investigators hoped the SUV's GPS might hold clues, but it had been factory reset. The vehicle's system contained no location history, no saved addresses, and no linked phones. It was as if someone had deliberately wiped it clean. Attention turned back to Darren Cole. His phone was seized with a warrant and combed for any evidence of communication with Olivia or anyone connected to her. Investigators found several messages on a messaging app between Darren and a user listed only as CR. The conversations dated back to just days after Olivia vanished. The two had discussed price, vehicle mileage, and meeting logistics. Darren transferred $4,800 through a peer-to-peer Cash App, and the transaction was confirmed. The recipient's account, however, had been closed shortly after receiving the funds. It was untraceable, created under a false name, and linked to a prepaid phone number. Darren insisted again that he'd never met Olivia, never seen her face, and only wanted a good deal on a used car. He seemed genuinely shaken to learn the SUV belonged to a missing pregnant woman. A search of his home revealed nothing suspicious. No weapons, no traces of Olivia's belongings, and no signs of violence. Still, the timing and circumstances raised alarms. Detectives didn't believe Darren was behind Olivia's disappearance, but they did believe he had unknowingly stepped into a much larger, darker scheme. While combing through the vehicle's service records and registration details, investigators noted something odd. Olivia's name had never been removed from the insurance. Whoever had sold the car hadn't even attempted to make it legally theirs. It added to the growing suspicion that the transaction was not just unauthorized, but designed to cover up something far more sinister. A composite sketch was created based on Darren's vague recollection of the masked man. It wasn't much: baseball cap, medium-build, dark eyes, but it was enough. As investigators sifted through the growing tangle of dead ends, they returned to Olivia's apartment for a second, more detailed search. The initial sweep had turned up nothing alarming, but now, with new questions surrounding her SUV's sudden appearance in Louisiana and a mysterious cash transaction, detectives were looking for any hint of a connection. This time, they brought forensic analysts, combed through drawers, flipped over furniture, and opened every book and box. In the corner of her bedroom, tucked into a hardcover copy of a self-help book, they found a folded piece of paper. That changed the tone of the investigation. The note was brief but unsettling. A phone number scribbled in pencil, followed by the initials CR, and beneath that, 6 haunting words: "Don't trust him. Be careful." The handwriting matched Olivia's known samples. Investigators ran the number immediately, but it had been deactivated. No name was tied to it, and the prepaid account had no subscriber information. The initials CR jumped out immediately. They matched the alias used in the messages Darren Cole had exchanged with the seller of the SUV. Detectives began to piece together the idea that Olivia had been involved, perhaps unknowingly, with someone dangerous, someone using a fake identity. The $5,000 withdrawal she made the morning of her disappearance now had new weight. It had seemed strange at the time. Olivia was not known to keep large amounts of cash, and no one knew why she had taken out such a sum. Her official financial accounts hadn't been touched since. The money was simply gone. The new evidence suggested Olivia may have been planning to confront someone or end a secret arrangement. She had taken steps to protect herself leaving. A note, hiding the phone number, but she hadn't told anyone what she was doing. Detectives pulled her phone records, but there was no call to the number on the note. Her personal phone hadn't been used after 9:30 p.m. on the night of her disappearance. It was beginning to look like she had been living a double life one. That had caught up with her in the worst way, with the initials CR now a potential suspect identifier. Law enforcement ran the letters through their internal systems, hoping for a match to known aliases or criminal profiles. It was a long shot, but what came back raised eyebrows. A man named Samuel Reyes, known to use similar initials, had a record spanning multiple states. He was currently not in custody, and his last known address was just 2 hours from Austin. Suddenly, Olivia's case was no longer just a missing persons report. It was a possible abduction tied to a dangerous man with a history of deceit. The name Samuel Reyes brought a surge of urgency to the investigation. His record was lengthy and varied: identity theft, fraud, and one dismissed charge involving coercion and threats made to a former partner. Though none of his past crimes involved violence, his history showed a pattern of manipulation and control, especially toward women. Reyes had been off the radar for nearly a year, and his last known address, an old duplex outside San Antonio, had been vacated months earlier. Still, the connection felt too close to be ignored. Detectives dug deeper into Olivia's digital footprint, hoping to find a clearer link between her and Reyes. That's when they uncovered a second bank account, one registered under her maiden name and tied to an email address she hadn't used in years. It wasn't connected to her main financial activity and had gone unnoticed during the initial search. The account had 3 small deposits over the past 4 months, all under $1,000, and all from the same PayPal username. That username was eventually traced to an account once owned by Samuel Reyes. The amounts weren't large enough to draw attention, but they suggested a private relationship, one Olivia hadn't shared with anyone. Investigators wondered if she had been receiving money in exchange for something. Was it blackmail? Was she being paid to stay silent? Or had she been involved with Reyes on a more personal level? Looking back through her social media history, detectives noticed a subtle shift in Olivia's posts beginning around 6 months before her disappearance. The typically bubbly and open young woman had started to become more reserved. Her photos were less frequent, her captions more vague. She posted fewer images of herself and more quotes about trust, freedom, and letting go. At the time, it might have seemed like typical stress from pregnancy or the pressures of adulthood. Now, it looked like something more. When they confronted Olivia's best friend with these findings, she hesitated before sharing something she hadn't thought was important at the time. A few months earlier, Olivia had mentioned meeting a man online, someone older, intense, and unlike anyone she'd dated before. She never gave a name, just said he made her feel alive, then later confessed that the relationship had turned complicated. She didn't explain why, only saying she felt like she was getting in too deep. Now, that warning felt ominous. With Reyes's name finally in their hands, detectives issued a nationwide bulletin. They believed he was involved not just with Olivia's disappearance, but possibly with her vehicle ending up in Louisiana and the money trail leading back to him. What they didn't know yet was just how far Olivia had gone to escape him, or what had happened when she tried .as. The investigation focused squarely on Samuel Reyes. The detectives began to trace his movements more aggressively. They discovered that Reyes had lived in several different places over the past year, often moving between states to avoid detection. His criminal past and tendency to disappear made him a difficult target, but law enforcement was determined to catch him. The only clue that seemed to lead anywhere was his previous residence, a small, secluded house near Lake Charles, Louisiana. Just a few miles from where Olivia's SUV had been found, police set out for Lake Charles, hoping that they might find some connection to Olivia at one of his former addresses. When they arrived, the property manager recognized Reyes's name and confirmed that the house had been rented out under an alias. He had left abruptly about a month ago, without any warning or explanation. The manager mentioned that the place had been left in a hurry, things were still scattered around, and the keys had been returned with a note saying, "Thanks for the stay." Upon searching the house, police found little of value, just a few old furniture pieces, some personal effects, and a single photograph of Reyes with a woman who looked very much like Olivia. She was standing beside him, her arms wrapped around his waist, smiling in a way that seemed forced. The urgency of the search escalated as law enforcement rushed to secure the motel. They could not afford to lose Reyes again, especially with the knowledge that Olivia might still be in his grasp. By the time they arrived, the room was empty. A cleaning crew reported that the room had been checked out earlier that morning, but there were no signs that anyone had packed or made any significant preparations to leave. As investigators combed through the room, they found more clues that suggested Olivia had been staying there. A discarded receipt from a local pharmacy had Olivia's name on it, as well as a note that read, "Stay calm. I'll be back later." The handwriting was unmistakably Reyes's, confirming that he had been in close contact with her. There was no indication that Olivia had been in any physical distress at the time, but it was evident that she was trapped in some way. The police immediately began searching surrounding areas and nearby motels, hoping to find some indication of where Reyes and Olivia had gone next. They contacted local law enforcement in neighboring states, spreading the word about the potential whereabouts of Reyes, knowing they were getting closer, but still not fast enough. Time was running out, and the pressure was mounting. Olivia was alive, but how much longer could she remain safe while Reyes continued to slip through their fingers? The investigation had shifted from tracking a suspect to tracking a victim. They weren't just searching for Olivia now. They were searching for a woman who had been manipulated, isolated, and possibly coerced into staying silent. It was a race to find her before Reyes could disappear completely, before Olivia's chance of escape dwindled away entirely. For days, the search for Samuel Reyes and Olivia Hart seemed to stretch endlessly, each new lead quickly turning cold. Reyes was a ghost, slipping through law enforcement's fingers at every turn. His ability to disappear and avoid detection felt almost deliberate, as though he knew exactly how to manipulate the system. But as investigators pieced together the remaining fragments of Olivia's life, one detail stood out, a clue that had gone unnoticed until now. Olivia had been an avid online shopper. Her purchase history, buried in her email inbox, revealed several packages that had been delivered to her apartment in the months leading up to her disappearance. Most were typical items, a few maternity clothes, some household products, even baby gear, but one stood out. It was an order placed only a week before her party for a burner phone. A cheap prepaid device, purchased online and shipped to her address. At first, it didn't seem like much, but the more the investigators thought about it, the more it made sense. Olivia had been trying to protect herself. A burner phone would allow her to keep in touch with someone without risking her personal number being traced. Perhaps she had been in communication with someone else, someone other than Reyes, someone she trusted. With this new lead, detectives retraced Olivia's movements and searched her apartment one more time. The phone had never been found, but they did uncover an unexpected clue, an encrypted message hidden in an old app on her laptop. The message, seemingly sent in the days before her gender reveal party, was a simple "I'm safe" Don't worry. I'll see you soon. I promise. It was sent from an encrypted email account Olivia had set up under a different name. The account had been used sparingly, with just a few emails exchanged, one of which was to an unknown recipient. This person, whoever they were, had been in contact with Olivia, possibly during the time she had been trying to distance herself from Reyes. Investigators ran the name on the account, but it yielded no immediate results. The email was as carefully guarded as the rest of Olivia's secrets. Still, the possibility that Olivia had a network of people she trusted beyond her family began to shift the direction of the investigation. Perhaps Reyes was not the only one trying to control her life. Olivia might have been trying to escape more than just him. As law enforcement worked to trace the burner phone and cross-reference all the new information, a tip came in from an unlikely source. A man who had recently seen Reyes in a small town near the Louisiana-Texas border claimed that Reyes had been accompanied by a woman. The man didn't recognize her, but he remembered the way she looked, a woman with a desperate, fearful expression. Someone who didn't seem like she wanted to be there. This was the breakthrough the investigators had been hoping for. Olivia was still with Reyes, and now they were closer than ever to finding her. Time was running out, but the final pieces were starting to fall into place. As law enforcement closed in, the tension was palpable. Olivia's fate hung in the balance, and Reyes, now a fugitive on the run, was becoming increasingly desperate. The new tip from the man who had seen them near the Louisiana-Texas border pushed investigators to scour the area in greater detail. They focused on small motels, truck stops, and isolated rural routes where Reyes might hide. The walls were closing in, but Reyes was a seasoned manipulator, and he knew exactly how to cover his tracks. The breakthrough came when investigators were able to trace a series of rental cars connected to Reyes through a network of third-party agencies. He had rented vehicles in the past week, always using different names and fake identification, but law enforcement was able to pinpoint his latest rental just outside Shreveport, Louisiana. A local police team was immediately dispatched to the area, hoping to catch a break. A small, run-down gas station near the outskirts of town. A patrol car spotted the rented vehicle parked in front. Reyes had been using it to blend in, but this time he was careless. The gas station attendant, who had grown accustomed to seeing the vehicle in the area, recognized Reyes when he walked into the store. His nervous demeanor was unmistakable. It was the moment they had been waiting for. The officers moved in quickly but discreetly, approaching the vehicle. They kept a safe distance as they waited for Reyes to leave the store, hoping that Olivia would be with him. When Reyes exited alone, the officers closed in, arresting him without a fight. His demeanor was calm, almost resigned, as if he knew the game was up. They didn't find Olivia with him. She wasn't in the car, and there was no immediate sign of where she had been taken. The sense of dread that had been lingering in the investigation seemed to reach its peak. Had they lost her again? But the arrest of Reyes was not the end. It was the beginning of the final, most critical phase. As the search for Olivia intensified, law enforcement scoured every possible location Reyes could have used for hiding her. They dug deeper into his past, looking for other properties or connections that could lead them to Olivia. Days turned into nights, and the pressure mounted as Olivia's family, now reeling with hope and despair in equal measure, waited for the resolution they had been longing for. Then, just as the case seemed to teeter on the edge of hopelessness, a break came. A woman, frail and pale, was found in an abandoned cabin on the outskirts of a small town in Arkansas. She was disoriented, but alive. It was Olivia. She had managed to escape from Reyes after a confrontation in which she had fought to regain control of her life. Her strength and will to survive had kept her going through what had been an unimaginably difficult month When Olivia was reunited with her family, the emotional relief was overwhelming. The investigation wasn't over. Reyes still had to face the full extent of his crimes, but Olivia was finally free. The truth about what happened during those harrowing weeks would unfold in time, but for now, the most important thing was clear. Olivia Hart had vanished, but she had also found a way to survive.